So I went to audition at LVA. They told us we need to get a portfolio for my pieces, and I remember thinking how huge the thing was once we got it. It was this large black portfolio, and inside were these plastic protector sheets. It reminded me a lot of the giant version of the school report you turn in for a huge chunk of points. Once I brought my pieces in, I was sat down at a table with a huge amount of objects spread all over it. I was given paper and a pencil, and asked to spend an hour creating a still life based on where I was sitting and what I could see. I'm happy to say that, in the end, my art showed enough promise and practice to get me in, and I spent the first 2 years developing my visual design skills. The first year of visual design was more or less based on making monochromatic black and white art. We worked with pencils and black and white acrylics. It was all about developing an eye for values, learning light and dark, and working with shadows and shades. This was alright. I have to admit the first year was much more difficult for me than the second year would be. I struggled with the painting especially, as it tended to be very messy and touchy. Drawing was much more up my alley, as its appeal had roots dating back to my years in elementary and middle school. This being the case, I found myself in a much more comfortable space once sophomore year hit. Visual Design 2 was probably the most important class I've ever been in, as it introduced me to new and fascinating techniques for drawing. Things like cross-hatching, contouring, and general line work techniques that have basically served me well since to this day. We also started using color, which was great. Black and white have been fine, but felt very boring to me. I've always had a strong love of bold colors, and this gave me the opportunity to explore that side of art as well. I still didn't enjoy painting all that much, but the other major reason this class was excellent was a new type of project, the outside assignment. The concept was simple. Our teacher would assign one particular word for the whole class, and each student would need to create a piece based entirely around that word, using any kind of art. Visual Design 2 was much more of an anything goes sort of class compared to Visual Design 1. Before, we were basically confined to just black and white, pencil and acrylic, and now we had a full range of different options open to us. It was all about the mixed media. We were allowed to basically make whatever we wanted so long as we were able to adequately explain how this particular piece explored the topic. We were assigned to a particular presentation day, and we would need to be prepared when it came, or risk failing out, as these projects were worth huge points. These were a big deal, as they forced me to really take in the meaning of the given word, and try to suss out any particular qualities that I could translate to the page. As much as I try to call back to the memories, I only remember a single word out of all the ones we were given. Ironically, it's ephemeral, which refers to something that's transient or fleeting, something that fades away. I had never heard the word before then, but these days I can't forget it. Funny how that's the only word that actually stuck with me. Human brain's just hilarious, I guess. The outside assignments were really interesting for me, even back then. I was really into symbolism, and I kind of made everyone suffer because of it, though unintentionally. As the year went on, these projects became bigger and more grandiose, and my explanations of them became more and more overly descriptive. By the end of the year, I would be holding 2 or 3 pages of notebook paper with all of the symbolism written out, and there was so much of it. I cringe even just thinking back to that time, but I guess you could say that I was already trying to nail down a style. After Visual Design 2, I pulled away from the idea of doing the advanced art classes, which I knew would ask me to do even more painting. Instead, I began to focus on my other interests. I got heavily into doing magic tricks in the summer between sophomore year and junior year. Art was never far behind though, and I continued to create stuff well into senior year. At the end of high school in 2006, I was working on a novel with a group of friends, and went about creating many pieces to feature in the book. Making this art was extremely helpful in continuing to develop my skills, as the age-old techniques of cross-hatching and contours were evident in every piece I would create.